Hi again TTS. I'm having a great time at my new job. Everyone is great and I love all of my customers. So I thought I'd share another positive story with you guys, they make me happy. Today's story starts during quite a hectic time. Everyone is getting back from vacation and we are slammed. During these times I like to work from the front desk area. We got a couple of workstations there where we can hook our laptops into. This way I can greet customers as they come to the desk, rather than them calling the bell or waiting. Hello? A voice calls out from in front of me and I peer over my monitors. Hello. Normal stuff, she has forgotten her password during her vacation and needs a new one. I walk back over to my PC to set her up. Curious, oh. What is that keyboard you got? The keys are very high. I've brought my own keyboard to work, a basic Roccat Vulcan 80, but it's mechanical and does the job. From the angle she is looking at it though, which is straight on, it looks very space age. Me, oh, I brought my own. I hate the ones we got here. Curious, what's special about it? The keys look like they are on stilts. Me, it's mechanical. It's actual mechanical switches rather than a mushy membrane that you press down on. It's great and stresses my hands less. Curious, that's nice. The keyboards here are bad. Is it better to type on? Me, I think so. At least for me, personal preference I think. I set her up with a new password. She thanks me for my time and help. I love happy cheerful customers. A week passes and I get a chirp / on Skype. It's Curious and she wants me to come to her workstations. She needs some help setting her laptop up. I head up to her floor, find her standing by her desk, giddy with excitement. Curious, oh hi freak. I got me one of those mechanical keyboards. Where can I plug it in? A week earlier this lady had never heard about different types of keyboards and probably never even tried a mechanical one. This was not just any keyboard. It was a freaking custom build. Looked crazy expensive and extremely pretty. Me, wow. That's nice. Where did you find that? Curious, I looked around. Did you know you can build your own keyboards? I found a webpage that lets you pick your parts and someone builds it for you. I made a green one. Oh, and listen to the sound it makes. /took, took, took /. Me in absolute amazement, mind you, this lady is 50 plus, wow. So what you do is you connect the keyboard directly to the screen, it acts as a hub for your PC. Curious, that's easy, I can do that myself next time. Thanks you again freak. These users keep amazing me. Not only did she manage to find terms to Google from our short conversation, she also managed to get a keyboard customized and built for her. I've got a creeping suspicion that she now knows more about keyboard than I do. Maybe I should ask her for advice in the future. So one of my clients asked me to assist them with their computer not booting up. I work remotely, so I couldn't be on site to troubleshoot, so I work with them over the phone to ensure the hardware is connected properly and the BIOS is set up correctly. Computer still doesn't boot, so I inquire if they have a boot disk or USB bootable drive. They say they do, but they'll have to find it and that they'll call me back later. About 2 hours pass and I receive a frantic call that the customer got Windows to work but all of their programs, files are gone from the desktop. I can't connect to the computer, so I get them to reinstall our RAT and find a lovely discovery. They didn't repair Windows, they completely reinstalled it. I gave them specific instructions on how to repair Windows when they found their boot media. I told them not to click install Windows multiple times. I asked that they call me before they proceed to avoid any issues. Macron / Macron. Luckily they had their files backed up to another drive, so I was able to get some of them back, the ones that were backed up the previous day. I reinstalled their software and set it all up again. Client was happy, so I guess it ended well. So I don't actually work in IT, I work in a library. But I thought the story might fit here. The location where I was working at the time had just installed new card scanners for the self-service machines. Now these machines are very simple to use, you first press an icon on the screen to tell it whether you want to borrow or return books, then if you're borrowing books you scan your card and then the books, and if you're returning books you don't need to scan your card, you just feed the machine your books. The old card scanners had been sort of integrated into the desks, while the new scanners were attached to the screens. Now the company didn't feel the need to replace the desks, so they had just taped over the old scanners with white tape. But since it's still a visually different area on the desk, old customers with muscle memory etc., a large part of my job was basically just notifying people that they needed to use the new scanners. One day this customer comes in, an elderly man, and I see him putting his card on the white tape, so I go over to tell him that he needs to use the new scanners. He turns to me and says no need, this one still works. I am a bit perplexed since it's supposed to be off, but he goes on to explain, if I need to borrow books, I use this scanner, points to the new one, and for returning books, I use this one, points to the old one. Again, returning books doesn't require you to scan your card at all, since all the books have unique codes and the system automatically recognizes who had borrowed the book before. He was just putting his card against the defunct scanner, which did nothing, and then continued to return his books the way he was supposed to. But clearly the system worked for him, so who am I to intervene? This was a long time ago, so details are kind of hazy, but I remember the general picture. I was Tier 1 support for a cybersecurity company that sold security software. Our software basically prevented people from going to bad websites, and a few other things. You would set it up on another server within your network and ensure that it listened to all of the HTTP/HTTPS traffic. We also sold on-prem Linux boxes that you could proxy traffic through and did essentially the same thing. One of the most common issues we'd have is someone would tell us our software wasn't working, but in reality they had improperly configured the network side of things, and the traffic wasn't routing to the proxy. We usually confirm this with a packet capture or something, and as soon as we showed the network guys of whatever company we were talking to, they'd realize it was their problem, typically a firewall or something not liking the non-standard proxy port, and start fixing it. Occasionally we'd get calls from the company's outsourced tech support in India. The outsourced guys always seemed like they were working with limited information and would often stubbornly stick to some sort of script, so they could be hard to work with. They were also having to work at the middle of the night in their time zone, so I imagine some of them were very tired. One day I got such a call. Me, hi, thanks for contacting Corp, my name is Savoir _fair, what sort of issue are you experiencing? Customer, your software isn't working. When I go to a bad website it just comes up. Me, let me take a look. After a few pointed questions, I realize this is the exact same issue that plagues so many of our customers. I remote in and confirm. Me, sir, this packet capture shows that your server is never reaching our proxy server. The computer accessing the bad website is correctly configured to route to the proxy. You need to check with your network guys, show them this packet capture and they'll be able to get to the bottom of this. Customer begins repeating original issue he told me about. Me, sir, I understand what you originally said. But what I'm seeing is that your traffic is never reaching our proxy. So if you take this to your network team they can fix this. Customer, I understand that, but, begins rephrasing original issue in a different way. Me, sir, I assure that what I'm saying is correct. Look at this packet capture. You can clearly see the data is not reaching our proxy. And your company controls everything in between this computer and our server. We continued going back and forth for a bit, with the customer refusing to do anything but insist it was our problem. He kept on saying his boss wants him to get this issue resolved. Finally, I'm starting to run out of patience. Me, listen, I don't know how else to say this. Is there someone I can speak to who is in charge? Can I please speak to your boss, the one who is putting you up to this? This catches the customer off guard a little bit, but then he seemed happy to not have to deal with this anymore. He puts me on hold to see if he can get his boss. Presumably he has to dial someone back across the ocean. My coworker looks over at me. Did you just ask to speak to the customer's manager? A few minutes go by with me waiting, unsure what to expect. I was very confident in my reasoning, but sometimes bosses don't like getting dragged into trivial issues like this. Eventually, 3 guys get on the phone, all of them American, and present themselves as customers' bosses. They neutrally tell me that customer said I requested them. No yelling and screaming, So that's good. I calmly explained to them exactly the situation, what's going on, and how the packet captures show their traffic is never reaching our proxy server. There's a momentary confusion, but after a moment it clicks and they understand what I'm saying. They say they'll get their network guys to look into it. They thank me and tell me to close the ticket. Problem solved. Sometimes you just have to escalate up the chain to get the support you need. Tongue. Back in the early 1990s, I worked in a department of a research center that had a mix of servers, each running their own version of Unix or Linux. Each server had its own unique quirks, and it was my team's responsibility to administer them all, so we had to keep track of what was odd from one system to another. One day, one of the programmers came into our office, and she was complaining that her C program compiles were failing because backups were running. A strange issue, indeed. We checked and saw that they were indeed running, so as a favor, we stopped the backups. It seemed very strange that it happened, but since the machine was strange, we didn't think much of it. The problem is that those backups were very slow, and they took most of the day to run. They were on these KIC 150 cartridge tapes, which were pretty slow, even by early 1990s standards. We restarted the backups and let them finish later on. Next day, she comes back in, same situation, and we tried to delve further into the issue, but could not find anything. Even after stopping the backups, she came back again, and complained that something was still wrong, and that her code wouldn't compile. There wasn't much in the way of tech support for this server and operating system, but we suspected that she was just using it as an excuse. Backups should only just read files and write them to tape, yes. The next day, she returned with her team lead, her boyfriend, actually, and he insisted we fix the problem right then and there, since it happened yet again. So, we walked over to her desk, and watched what she was doing. Sure enough, she ran the compiler, and her program wouldn't compile. However, her compiles were complaining of syntax errors in the code, and missing components. Her method of compiling did not involve using standard CMake files, but she had written her own convoluted scripts that mimicked what a standard CMake file would do. She claimed it was easier, but whatever. As soon as her script would fail, she would immediately check all running processes, and sure enough, the backups were running. She hurriedly pointed to the backup processes on the screen and exclaimed, "That must be the problem." Instead of believing her, we asked to look at her code. We found problems with her code, and that was the real reason for the failures. Big surprise. We fixed those, and her program compiled. She wouldn't accept that, and kept insisting it was the system backups causing her problem. At that point, we just smiled and nodded, and said we'd return when we had a solution. When we got back to our desks, one of the guys had a possible solution, but he wouldn't tell us until he was sure it'd work. The next day, we checked in with her. She ran into compiler problems again, but she saw that the backups weren't running, so the problem was elsewhere. She went back to her code and figured out what she had to fix, and never came back to us about this again. The solution? She told us exactly what she blamed, so my coworker took that out of the picture. Instead of stopping the backups, he changed the name of the backup program to Emacs, a text editor, so that when she checked the system processes, she only saw that the operator was running an editor. Backups were never a problem again. And #X200B. I'll never forget that one.